Hey, what's good, everybody? Welcome to another video on I Am Nelson 89. And this is going to be part two to my top alt metal or alternative metal albums, which I did a few days ago. And since doing that video, I've actually come up with a better definition for alternative metal, one that I think that most people could agree with and get a better understanding of what it is, because I don't think I really explained it too well in the previous video. So today, a definition that I came up with is that bands who took metal music and they mixed it with other musical genres or styles. You know, if you recall my previous video, a lot of those bands, they were taking metal music and they were blending it with funk, rap, R&B, jazz, reggae. Heck, if you're talking about like Faith No More or Mr. Bungle, carousel music, ska, punk, things of that nature. They were just taking metal music and then they were fusing it with other genres that aren't typically associated with the genre of metal. That's what most of these bands do. They're not afraid to go against the grain and just do their own thing. Still maintain that heaviness and aggression from metal music, but kind of play with it, like, hey, let's see if this metal riff will go with this type of style or that type of style. That's what these bands do, and that's what I like about them, because I feel like it would be extremely kind of difficult to be an alternative metal band, seeing as you can't really pigeonhole their style, and they can practically switch a whole nother music genre within the same song multiple times. So I think it would be kind of maybe a little difficult, but at the same time fun to be in a band like that. So without further ado, we're gonna get into 5 more CDs that fall into that alternative metal category, and these are 5 more CDs that I think are, personally to me, some of my top alternative metal albums. So without further ado, let's get into this video. So number one for this video, and when I say number one, I'm not ranking these by better or for worse. I'm just pretty much just talking about them. But anyway, this first CD I have right here, this is 24/7 Spies, and this is a special like reissue that came out on Wounded Bird Records. It takes their EP, This is 24/7 Spies, and their Strength in Numbers album, and they put it all on one CD. But yeah, 24/7 Spies, man, I want to talk about this album right here in particular, Strength in Numbers, because I think that is one of the best alternative metal albums to come out, especially during the 90s. Uh, to me, well, first and foremost, 24/7 Spies, they are a rock band, metal band from South Bronx, New York, and I think they formed in 1986. They was formed by Jimmy Hazel, the lead guitarist, and Rick Scottor, the bassist. And those two are the constant members of the band. They're the only two original members in the band right now. And they released 2 albums prior to this one, Harder Than You and Gumbo Millennium, which I think got critical acclaim. Not too much commercial success, but this is their third album, Strength in Numbers. And this album didn't have a lot of commercial success, but amongst fans, this album is considered to be their best work. Uh, Now, although there is another album that they did years later that is also one of their best albums too, but this is considered one of their most complete albums right here. They really step, they really take it to another level with this record. Not only are they still maintaining that funk and rap fusion that they showcased on the previous 2 albums, but they're also blending in reggae. There's reggae music on this album. There's they're even taking the hard rock and metal and they're blending it with R&B and soul music. And as a matter of fact, 24/7 Spies, they like to call their particular genre, what they do is heavy metal soul, and that's what it sounds like, especially on this record. And I think that this album was really the beginning of them formulating that heavy metal soul sound that they talk about. And just a lot of great songs on here. Every song on here is great. It's one of those albums where it gets better as it goes along. Like you listen to one song, you think, hey, it might not get better than this, and then the next song is just even better. It's one of those type of albums. I really favor those type of records. And it was the first full length album with a slightly new lineup. Of course, Jimmy Hazel and Rick Scottor, they're still there, but they got a new lead vocalist. I think his name was John Bronax, and a new drummer. I can't think of the drummer's name right now, but yeah, they had two new members after the original vocalist and drummer left the band. And I honestly, I think that this album was better than the two previous ones that they did with the original lineup. Quite frankly, a lot heavier and a lot more experimental as far as like the different types of genres and stuff that they're blending with the metal music, and a lot of social commentary, a lot of music on here about racism, police brutality, uh, inequality, and people unifying. A lot of songs about love, like unconditional love, as well as relationships, being in love with someone that you're in a relationship with. There's a couple songs on here about this, but they mix things up pretty well on this record, and I think it's their best album. Honestly, I think it's their best album. I actually ordered uh an original CD pressing of this album off of eBay recently because I wanted to get a copy of it by itself so I could actually look at the original CD artwork and the liner notes. But I actually listen to it quite a bit. Usually when I'm on the 24/7 Spies kick, I usually go for their first album, Harder Than You, or this record. But I think this one is just remarkable. And unfortunately, like I said, it wasn't a huge commercial success because, well, what Wikipedia attributes it to is because of the Seattle grunge movement that was happening at that time. Because this album came out in 1992, and you could honestly say that 92 was probably one of the peak years for Seattle grunge. So Nirvana, Soundgarden, all those bands were ruling at this point. But in any way, 24/7 Spies, Strength by Numbers. You can find it online because it's out of print. And my copy, I found a brand new copy for a really reasonable price. So definitely look online, and you can also stream it if you're not into like looking up physical copies. You can actually stream this on whatever streaming platform you use. But yeah, definitely check out Strength in Numbers by 24/7 Spies. Okay, so the next album, and this is a band that actually appeared on the previous video on part one. This is Fishbone with The Reality of My Surroundings, released in 1991. Yeah, my number one favorite Fishbone album. Really dig this record, and quite frankly, I think that this is their most complete record. In all honesty, I really do think it's their most complete record because they're taking they're taking things from their roots, from their ska punk roots from back in the mid '80s, and then they're also amping up a bit more of that hard rock and metal that they started fusing in their sound around the time that they did. Well, it was when they dropped the Truth and Soul album in '88, and then they're maintaining that funk and a little bit of R&B and soul. Well, not a little bit. The R&B and soul is all over the record, and they even have reggae. They even putting reggae on here, and there's even a song here that goes into a full gospel song. Yeah, that song called "Everyday Sunshine." Uh, there's a part towards the end of that song where it changes into a full gospel song. But lots of great music on here. "Pray to the Junkie Maker," that's another favorite of mine. It's a reggae song which is about crackheads, not in a mocking manner, but it's social commentary because when this album came out in '91, the crack epidemic was happening in America, and then you have the last song on the album, "Sunless Saturday," which I would say is the most heavy and most metal infused song on this record. They actually had a video directed by Spike Lee, which was really cool. A very heavy and hard rocking song, which I think set the tone and foreshadowed where they was going to take it for the next record, which I talked about in part one of this video. But just lots of good music, lots of funk infused ska punk, reggae, R&B, and soul blended with metal and hardcore punk. in some instances, man. Just a lot of great music on here. They're definitely their most complete record. This is where the band reached their critical and commercial peak. You know, unfortunately, after this record, the band's popularity started to dwindle as far as in the mainstream. But definitely their most complete record. I think I got this off of FYE long time ago. Back when I ordered off their site. Back when their site was still good. It's not that good anymore. But yeah, liner notes fall down to a full poster and everything like that. But yeah, the reality of my surroundings, man. A dope, really dope record, man. If you ever want to get into Fishbone, I highly recommend this album. The reality of my surroundings, as well as Truth and Soul, the previous record, Truth and Soul. I highly recommend those two records if you ever want to dig into Fishbone. All right, so next album I have on here is this is another band that appeared on part one, Living Color, Stain. Yeah, released in '93 originally. This is a reissue that came out on Music on CD. And I've actually seen the original CD pressing at a few record stores, and one day I'll probably get it. But yeah, Stain. This is the band's third album. Their third full length album. It's the first one with Doug Wimbush because he replaced Mud Skillings, who was the bassist, the original bassist. He played on the first two records, and he left after they did the Biscuits EP that came out in '91 after Time's Up. But yeah, this is the first album with Doug Wimbush. The band actually broke up after this album. They broke up, in '95. Then they reformed, I think, in 2001. And got back to started doing shows, got back together, and since then they've released more material. But Stain, uh, I think Stain is another overlooked and underrated album in their discography. Actually, I think a lot of Living Colors music is underrated because of how successful Vivid was, the first record. But Stain is it's Living Colors' heaviest record. It's a little dark in places, a little more heavier and aggressive. And yeah, I don't know why this album wasn't as successful as the previous two. I guess people were a little turned off by the new approach they were going for. But there's a lot of great music on here, man. I mean, ignorance is bliss, which I think was one of the singles. Leave It Alone. Bye is another great song. This Little Pig, which is pretty much like a thrash metal song or crossover thrash type track. What else? Nothingness, which I think Nothingness was one of the singles for the album. But yeah, like I said, a very heavy and aggressive album from Living Color. But they also kind of blended in with other styles. Like it has a very like ambient atmosphere about it. If you listen to the song Nothingness, man, they add in like this ambience to the sound. It's kind of melancholy ambience to the sound. I don't know if the band was going through some things around that time and it affected the songwriting approach, but yeah, it's definitely one of Living Color's heaviest records, and it's honestly their best in my opinion. I really enjoy this record. Probably my favorite Living Color album. Usually when I'm on a Living Color kick, Stain is usually the one I usually go for the most. So definitely check out Stain. It's not hard to find. Like I said, I've seen used copies of it at record stores a few times, and you can also stream it. But yeah, just a great album by the band. So that's Stain by Living Color. All right, so next album we got on here is the debut album from System of a Down. Yeah, their self-titled debut. Now, I did do a video where I ranked System of a Down's albums, and I think this one made the top three. This one made the top three. I think it was number three actually. I think what I enjoy so much about this record is, for one, you could say that this is System of a Down's heaviest record. It's their most heaviest and abrasive record, and I like how they took like the thrash metal influences and they blended it with like the Armenian folk music, and then they also implemented like the new metal formula a little bit in some songs with those like chugging riffs down to guitars. That's one of the things I like about this record, and it also has a bit of like a kind of twisted kind of Frank Zappa progressive rock vibe to it in some instances, man. But definitely an awesome record, and there's no question that this was gonna make my top alternative metal albums. Shoot, System of a Down, all their albums might make my list as I keep making more of these videos. But yeah, this is a really good album, man. The way I just especially like the way that they blended the metal with the Armenian folk music. I just thought that was really cool. I just thought that was really cool how they blended it with that. But definitely a great record, man. System of a Down, their debut album. Excuse the glare. Okay, and last but certainly not least, I don't know how some of you may feel about this, man, but hey, it is what it is. It's called my top alternative metal album, so yeah. So I'm gonna go for it. I chose Linkin Park's "The Hunting Party," released in 2014. Now this album right here actually got me back into Linkin Park a little bit. I honestly, I gotta say, I think this is their best album. A lot of people always say Hybrid Theory or Meteor, but I think the Hunting Party, I think it trumps those. I think it trumps both of those records. I know that's, I know that's black. I know that's kind of like blasphemous to say amongst Linkin Park fans because everybody is always so revered about how they're always revering the hybrid theory and Meteor. I mean, don't get me wrong; those were great records of their time, man. But I just think that the Hunting Party just took it to a whole nother level, and I wish that they had kind of stuck with this style and maybe expanded on it more instead of going totally 180 with One More Light. But honestly, this is the band's heaviest record in my opinion, and I think Chester's vocals was so much more aggressive and harsher on this record. Like he's actually screaming a lot more than he ever has on previous records on this album. Not only that, but it has a very raw sound because I believe Mike Shinoda said in an interview that I watched where when this album right around the time this album came out, he said that they recorded this album on analog, so they didn't use digital recording. They took it back old school and did it on analog. And he also said that what really inspired him to want to write this record was he felt like at the time there wasn't really any real good rock albums out in music at that point. So he wanted to make a rock album, and what inspired him was Metallica's Ride the Lightning and Faith No More is the real thing, I believe. Or he might not have said a specific Faith No More album. I think he might have just said Faith No More, but he did say that Faith No More and that whole early '90s alternative metal movement that was happening, with bands like Helmet, who Page Hamilton of Helmet, he appears on this album. Just that whole vibe, when Rage Against the Machine burst on the scene and so forth. That's what really inspired them to write this record, and they did a great job. I mean, Brad Delson actually does solos on this album, and they actually had to convince him to do it because he didn't want to. He actually does some solos on this record, which he does really well. But it's got some appearances from Darren Malakian of System of a Down, Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine. Although his appearance on here is not very great. I feel like it was wasted and more could have been done with it. But he does make an appearance on here, as well as I already said Page Hamilton of Helmet and Rakim, hip hop icon Rakim is on this record. But lots of great music. They don't, as far as like the blending of musical styles, I don't think they really. Linkin Park didn't really do anything too out of the norm or unorthodox compared to the other bands that I've talked about. They didn't do anything too unorthodox. There is a song on here called "War," which is, excuse me, just got through eating. There's a song here called War, which is pretty much a punk rock song, and it sounds like something that Rancid would have done on one of their albums. That's that vibe it has, a very heavy, raw, stripped down punk song. My favorite song here is A Line in the Sand. It has a really slow intro to the song where Mike Shinoda actually sings, and then it just kicks into this kind of up tempo, heavy song, man. I wanna kind of compare it to sort of like thrash metal, in some ways, like modern, more like modern thrash metal in some ways. That's the vibe that I get from it. Very heavy song. Martha Graves is another one, more of a mid tempo track, but heavy, but very melodic and beautiful at the same time, man. And then the Keys to the Kingdom that kicks off the record, a very heavy and aggressive song that really sets the tone for this album and what the listener is in store for. And I definitely dig All or Nothing with Page Hamilton. Page doesn't really sing any verses on this song. He does the hook. It's a heavy track, heavy down to groovy track. Mike Shinoda, he raps the verses, and probably some of his best rapping in a long time. I mean, he really came through on. He's never been a terrible rapper. I've never thought Mike Shinoda was a terrible rapper. Uh, he did his approach on that song is kind of more like when he does Fort Minor, when he did the Fort Minor project. That's more of that's more of a point of reference to how lyrically as a rapper he comes on this record and on this song in particular. But I like how Page Hamilton sings on that chorus. Uh, just an awesome album in my opinion. I think the album was pretty successful when it came out, but people always complain about Linkin Park after Meteor because they went for a more mainstream radio rock sound with Minutes to Midnight. Then they went really experimental with A Thousand Suns. Then they sort of was kind of bringing it back with Living Things, although that was more on the electronic rock side. But this album is where they really brought it back to like that early sound with I'll say more along the lines of Meteora maybe. It's not as industrial, well not an industrial, not like it's not electronic influence like Hybrid Theory was. Hybrid Theory had a lot of electronic influences on that record, but they really brought it back to that raw, hard rocking 90s metal sound. That's what I dig so much about this record. And I think this is the album that so many Linkin Park fans wanted them to make. And when they did make this record and put it out, I don't think a lot of people really paid much attention to it. Although they did sell a lot of copies. It did sell. I mean, Linkin Park, huge band, so of course, anytime they drop something, it's gonna sell a lot. But this is that album, man. If you're someone that was missing the sound of Hybrid Theory and Meteor, it's kind of right here. It's kind of right here. But I just think that this record is just better, man. So definitely, if you've never taken the time to listen to The Hunting Party by Linkin Park, you are definitely missing out on one of their best albums. Honestly, like to me this is their swan song. I mean, I do have One More Light. I don't listen to it that much, but to me this is their swan song. Well, I don't know if the band's totally over, but I think this is to me this is one of Chester's best performances, man. And R.I.P. to Chester Bennington, man. You know, but definitely a wonderful album. One of my favorites, man. Really dig it. All right, so that's it for this video. Part two of my top alt metal albums. Uh, I'll try to get around to doing a part three, hopefully, because I'm coming up with other ideas for other videos to do. But until then, hope everybody will just like, share this video, subscribe to the channel, check out my other videos. I still got my podcast episodes up, things of that nature you can check out in the meantime until I come with another video. And I thank everybody that's supporting me, that's liking the videos, that's leaving really good comments. I really appreciate that. And I try to react or at least try to comment on some of you guys' responses on my videos as much as I can. Not that I'm getting super many comments, but I try to engage as much as I can, with people that are watching my videos because I really appreciate it. Because honestly, I never really think anybody will watch my videos, but the few that do, I'm very appreciative of it. But as always, hope everybody has a blessed day and has a blessed rest of the week and weekend. And as always, love, peace, and music. Peace out, y'all.